government is putting more resources into irrigation, post-harvest storage, extension services, and agro-processing hubs. We want to see Ugandans earn more from what they grow and make, and not just sell raw produce as the focus of government, not just selling, they need to add value. When it comes to skills, technology for the youth and women, government has prioritized skilling youth and women through training for the youth and women in digital skills, crafts, and entrepreneurship. Given that technology can help businesses grow faster, we are expanding internet access, innovation hubs, and e-government services so that small businesses can operate more efficiently. Government is also making changes in the way we manage taxes and businesses regulations. We are working to simplify tax procedures for smaller businesses, where we all know, I think, we know that the government has put in place a tax holiday, a 3-year tax holiday, for small businesses that are going to start after 1st July 2025. The 3-year tax holiday. URA is not going to start looking for small, newly established small businesses. So I think this is a way to go. Government is also endeavoring to reduce compliance burdens through digital platforms like URA e-taxation, and then one-stop business registration system. Strengthening consumer protection and tackling the challenge of counterfeits to protect local entrepreneurs. That's why, as the previous speaker indicated, the government endeavored to provide funds to UNBS to ensure that really they tackle this challenge that has been affecting business people. We want a system where small businesses can grow without fear or misunderstanding or confusion, and where there is, of course, we are talking of transparency, and where informal traders are supported, not punished, as they try to formalize their businesses. Ladies and gentlemen, civil societies are the bridge between communities and policymakers. They bring out the voices of the woman who is down there in her small businesses, say selling charcoal, the border rider. Those are examples of the people we are talking about. To enable them start, for example, to grow their businesses. The young mothers running like tailoring shops, all these were put in place initiatives where they can access support to grow their businesses and generally all businesses and investors. The tax regime, of course, is friendly to encourage investments and businesses to grow. So as a government, therefore, we need you to help us in monitoring how the budget that we are putting in place, how the money that we are allocating are utilized at all levels, especially at the local level. Is the money doing what it's supposed to do, what it's provided for? If it is meant for the road or a bridge, is the bridge there, or it has gone into some other things? It's your role and us and the honorable members. I heard there was some MP here oversight function, oversight role of the political leaders to ensure really that this money, and civil society of course, to ensure that really this money does what it is intended to do. That's the only way we can realize the objectives, the intended objectives, of course, growth of the economy. As I conclude, ladies and gentlemen, the financial year, which is starting in July, the financial 25-26 budget, is not just about the numbers, the 72.4 trillion you are talking about. Those are figures, but it is about the people, the well-being of the people, the welfare of the people, the growth of the economy, service delivery improvement. That's why all these initiatives, all these the funds you have talked about have been provided to ensure that really the service there is improvement in services and delivery of services to the people who are the beneficiaries. It is about giving every Ugandan, no matter their background or business size, the tools and the environment to thrive. Let us therefore continue working together as a government, civil society, and the private sector to create a Uganda where hard work is rewarded and where no entrepreneur is left behind. On behalf of the Permanent Secretary and Secretary to the Treasury, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for listening to me, for God and my country.
Give him another round of applause. Thank you very much for that keynote speech that is going to take us to a panel discussion. I'm going to invite in front here 4 individuals, men and women of substance, who understand the topic we're talking about very well. I'm sure they are prepared for this, but also you'll be able to engage them after their presentation. Either you enrich their discussion, you agree with them, or also disagree. I'll be giving you the rules of engagement and how we are going to have our plenary so that you can be orderly. I would love each one of you to participate, because the reason you've come to the dialogue is because we also want to hear and learn from you. So may I now invite the panelists to come and take their positions in front, and thereafter we have the discussion begin. From the Uganda Chambers of Energy and Minerals, the Chief Executive, Mr. Humphrey Asimwe. Please, Mr. Humphrey Asimwe, come and take the seat. From the Parliament of Uganda, we have the Member of Parliament for Shema Municipality, the Honorable Kateshumbwa Dixon. Also, among our panelists, we have the Head of Private Sector Development Unit, Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, Diana Nanono. And last but not least, we have a Director of Policy Research and Advocacy, Uganda Manufacturers Association, Mr. Alan Senyondwa. So they will be having topics that are related, each one of them to look at. For example, the Honorable Katesh will be, the Honorable Katesh Shumbwa, I'm sorry for shortening your name. Sometimes we call you that. I hope you're not offended, sir. The Honorable Katesh Shumbwa will be looking at what is the best implementation approach for the financial year 2025-26 budget to maximize private sector development in Uganda. Mr. Alan Senyondo will be looking at the financial year 2025-26 budget signals for trade and investment opportunities, how prepared is the private sector? Madam Diana Nanono will be answering what is our government doing to promote sustainability and competitiveness of the private sector. And Mr. Humphrey Asimwe will be taking us through how supportive is the current fiscal regime in advancing local participation and value maximization in the minerals and petroleum industry. Each one will have 5 minutes to make their case, and after that, there will be a session where you will engage them in a question and answer session. And if you totally disagree with them, it's the nature of debate, you are allowed to do so, but remember to disagree with respect. And so, shall we begin? I think let us begin with the Honorable Kateshumba Dixon. What is the best implementation approach for the budget to maximize private sector development in Uganda?
Thank you very much, moderator, and thank you, CSBAG, for organizing this and inviting me. I must first, I don't know whether I should apologize, but just to tell you that I have made your event partisan, because I have come from nominations, very well dressed in our party colors, the mighty NRA party. So I'm the only one wearing yellow. And I had to come because we are the government in power, and the budget that we passed this year is the budget that has been aligned with our 4th National Development Plan. As a matter of fact, when the budget was presented by the ministry, we had not yet approved the National Development Plan, the first the budget framework paper. So we had to ask the ministry to fast track the NDP4 so that it informs the budget this year and informs priorities in the first year of the implementation of the NDP 4. So within the NDP 4, of course, we have the private sector development program, and your question of how the implementation can be to make sure that there is private sector promotion and participation. For starters, I think that our private sector need to understand the priorities within the budget at all levels, the big players, the small players, and even the prospective players. For example, the prospective players, they have to look at the new incentive regime that we have provided for startups. And if you are trying to start a business, this is the time to start the business. Secondly, the private sector, as the economy grows, and so has been our per capita incomes, the wealth programs which government has implemented have generated new consumers beyond consumption for the stomach, beyond subsistence. So there are opportunities. If government has invested in PDM and people have used the money effectively, then you would expect that people are also improving their households. Someone who had a temporary structure household is probably going to improve it, maybe paint his house or cement his house, and all that is actually demand for the manufactured goods. And so as the government invests in wealth programs, so are our people improving in terms of consumption. So that's an opportunity for private sector. Now, when it comes to implementation, This is where we have a challenge as Uganda. And we all must be frank to talk to ourselves. For starters, the Minister of Finance, some of us believe that we should prioritize as we do releases. For example, in the first 2 quarters, we think that priorities should be money that goes into production of money, okay? So if you are looking at, for example, some of the wealth funds that are going to lead to growth in the 2nd and 3rd quarter and 4th quarter, you should be front-loading these investments, these releases by government, so that the private sector and the people can actually participate and generate money. For example, you have budgeted a trillion for areas. So let's prioritize payment of areas, because it's affecting private sector directly. People have supplied government. They could use that money to expand and generate more money and generate more revenue. The other point is about implementation and oversight. At all levels, from the ministries at policy level and up to the grassroots, we must make sure that we set clear timelines, clear objectives, and performance indicators. If people are not measured, if they are not on pressure to be measured, they will not be very active. So the issue of NDP, for when we are passing it, one of the key requirements as members of parliament, particularly our committee of budget, we said we need to see performance indicators and targets, because the implementation of previous development plans has been very disappointing. The targets have not been met. So what are the sanctions that are in place to make sure that there is implementation of the programs and the monies that have been set? On the loans, I know we are going to borrow. Again, readiness. If you are going to borrow, you must borrow when you are ready to start the project. And you must be able to mobilize the private sector to participate. If you are going to borrow for, and then you have the money seated on attracting interest and commitment fees, it does not help us. On the exports, we have grown in terms of exports. There are opportunities. We have put money in commercial diplomacy. People are there marketing. We have opened new areas for the airlines. The question now comes back to the government. How are you mobilizing private sector? How can someone, you know, the other day I was in Sherman meeting my people, and they elected me unopposed as the chairman of the party, while I had accompanied the minister for our inaugural flight to London. So when I was in Shem, I was telling them, then they asked me, how can we make sure that our Matoke reach London? We hear there are many Ugandans. So it comes back now to how do you prepare the private sector as government holistically to take advantage of the new opportunities. If you have opened new routes for airlines, you have invested in commercial diplomacy, how do you mobilize people at all levels? The big, the small. You have invested in PDM, but you must be able to consolidate production at in different local areas, so that they are properly, you know, aggregated and mobilized to know the standards they need to meet, so that they can be able to export. Because when you look at the PDM, for example, some of the pillars have not been given the attention that they are supposed to have. We have focused only on the financial aspect, but other aspects of, you know, mobilizing production, having silos, so that you can aggregate small products, and then you have a clear value chain. How do you consolidate the production in Ivanda, in Bishenyi, for small producers up to the airport, and link them to the off-takers who can actually export? That's I think some of the That's a challenge for the government, together with the private sector associations which are here. Because one of the last point, Kamala, for the private sector, there is a problem which has come up over the years. I call it man eat man. Competition within yourselves. And I see it as a policymaker, especially when we are dealing with new policies like tax measures. So you will have one group says, "Ah, no, that one is good for us," but the other one says, "No, the other one wants monopoly." So there is need for private sector to be stronger, because you have many. You have Manufacturers Association, Private Sector Foundation, CASITA, Chamber of Commerce, and you have different interests, and you pull yourselves in different directions. So even as a private sector, the challenge to you is how do you mobilize yourselves and look at bigger interests and front load them ahead of your individual interests. When I was Commissioner Customs, whenever I would be in Arusha discussing policies, you would see the delegation from Kenya, the ministers, PSCs, and their private sector together. For us, we would be three without even a private sector. Myself, Ogwapusa, and maybe Masco or Kagwa. And then you see the private sector. So this problem of man eat man in the steel sector, in the sugar sector, in the textile sector, you need to have one voice, at least of the bigger interests, so that then you can put government to task. That's what I could
Thank
say.
you. Thank you very much. Before I give the microphone to Madam Diana Nanono, you talked about the borrowing, and borrowing is a big issue for Uganda. I'm wondering, you said, and that's your concern, sometimes we borrow and we're not ready to utilize the money. So the question is, why is it recurrent that we're borrowing colossal sums of money and we're not ready to utilize it, yet it's speaking interest? For example, it could be project affected persons, they are not compensated. Money is there, Ugandans are paying the interest. Are there people who probably are benefiting off the loans as commissions, and that's why they are forcing them down our throats?
I don't have that information, but what I know is that some of the, we need to look at the projects for which we are borrowing. Are they supplier driven or they are need driven? If we are going to build markets, are we building a market that people will welcome, where people have participated? Or you want to put a structure because there is money, and then you tell people to shift, then you struggle. There is a market on my way when I'm going home. There is a market in Ruera. What's that place? Where they sell a lot of chicken. Rukaya. It is a new market, but it's empty. So why did we build it? Did we do stakeholder engagements? So that could have been built on a loan, but we are not getting return on investment. So my question, I think it goes back to the government, and as Parliament, we are very keen now to look at the loans that are coming, to say if you are not ready. But also I think NPA has come up with a process where they take the proposals through some kind of process. I've forgotten the term they use, to make sure that we are borrowing, the projects we are borrowing for are viable, they have done a study, and we don't fall into the same problem.
Thank you very much. Madam Diana Nanono, what is our government doing to promote sustainability and competitiveness of the private sector?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As mentioned, my name is Diana Nanono, and I head the Private Sector Development Unit at the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development. As my senior Honorable Kate Shumba did present, I listened in quite keenly, and when you look at issues of the private sector, The fourth National Development Plan that will commence on 1st July 2025 puts it categorically. We have provided for the private sector development program and other interventions therein that pertain to the private sector. However, it's not just the private sector program, the private sector development program where we have interventions for the private sector. All the other programs of the NDP4 have interventions that pertain to the private sector. So be it agro-industrialization, tourism, among others, there are interventions that pertain to the private sector, and at the private sector development unit, we coordinate these interventions for purposes of enhancing private sector competitiveness. Mr. Moderator, you did ask a question, how is government ensuring sustainability and competitiveness of businesses? So as we may know, competitiveness refers to the ability of a firm to export its products at a low cost. However, over the number of years, we have heard and have listened to the private sector with a number of concerns around the impediments for them to competitively do business in this country. And when we look at the budget for financial year 25-26, government has made numerous strides in ensuring that we address a number of these bottlenecks. And a number of speakers that have come in before this plenary have spoken to a number of them. So I'll basically do some bit of emphasis around a number of these bottlenecks and how we have addressed them to ensure that we promote private sector competitiveness. One of the biggest issues that we have listened in from the private sector has been the aspect of access to finance. You will note, Mr. Moderator, that this financial year we did provide 55 billion to Uganda Development Bank for onward lending to the private sector to do business in this country. However, we've received feedback on a number of occasions that these resources that we were putting under UDB were minimal and could not deliver the much desired impact that government really needed. And to that extent, we see that come next financial year, additional resources to the tune of about 1 trillion are to be injected in UDB. And we think that this will go a long way in unlocking the finance issue and ensuring that businesses competitively thrive in the country. There are a number of other financing interventions that have equally been made. When we look at the agricultural credit facility under Bank of Uganda, we see that an additional 50 billion has also been provided. We think that this will also further, in addition to the resources under UDB, we think that this will also go a long way in ensuring that we unlock this finance challenge. I could also speak to the financing under the investment for industrial transformation and employment project. This is a project that where government has borrowed money or resources from the World Bank to help manufacturers and exporters do business better and provide for long-term credit or financing with new products for the private sector. There is a component of that project that has already commenced in terms of providing business development services to the private sector to prepare them to receive the loan component as they do business in this country. And this project is mainly targeted to those that will be adding value as well as exporting out of this country. Again, to the aspect of financing, Mr. Moderator, you may note that a number of speakers that have come through have spoken to the issue of production around quantities. you had the PS of Ministry of Foreign Affairs speak to the aspect of the volumes that we have for export markets, the minimum volumes that we have for export markets. And some of the issues that play back into this challenge are issues of financing. And to that extent, we did launch the large-scale commercial farmers facility in December last year to allow for large-scale commercial farmers to access credit with interest being met by government. And I think a number of speakers have also spoken to this. The project Undergrow, we have also provided for resources, 231 billion next financial year, to see to it that women continue to receive capital into businesses and to allow for businesses to thrive in the country. And that has really been an issue around financing. Secondly, the other issue that the private sector has consistently spoken to that impedes their competitiveness, this is the issue that is related to our tax regime. And when you look at the pronouncements in next year's budget, we see that stamp duty on mortgages has been removed. We think that that will go a long way in enhancing, again, access to finance, because then it reduces the cost for the private sector to access money and do business and export competitively. So we think that is of added value. Of course, Honorable Kateshumbwa has also spoken about the 3-year tax holiday for a lot of the startups. Now is the time for businesses to start in this country, given this favorable environment that government seems to be establishing. And it also points to the fact that government has been listening. In the past, on a number of occasions, we've read reports that a lot of the businesses in this country die or close in their first year of establishment. And some of the reasons that have been advanced for this challenge were the tax regime. So this opportunity for a lot of businesses to start and enjoy a tax holiday for 3 years, we think will go a long way in expanding the tax base for this country, but also allowing young businesses to thrive and duly compete. The other issue that I could speak to that has really been a challenge has been the arrears problem for a lot of our private sector actors that do supply government. A lot of their resources have been locked up within different ministries, departments, and agencies, and they've not been able to receive their payments. So the opportunity in the budget for financial year 25-26 is that whereas this year we had provided for 200 billion to clear the arrears situation for a lot of these businesses, next financial year this money has been upped to 1.4 trillion. So the expectation is that a number of businesses that did supply government will be able to receive resources to ensure that they do not go under.
And how much is the domestic arrears budget? You're putting in 1.4, but what is the money required?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Moderator. The approximate value is about 13 trillion. However, this is supposed to be verified. These resources are supposed to be verified by government, and going forward, government has also put in place a strategy to ensure that we manage the arrears problem.
You realize the whole bill is 13 trillion. You're putting in slightly more than 1 trillion, even though last year you wanted 200 billion. You still have a lot of way to go, don't you?
Well, whereas there's a long way to go, this area situation still has to be verified by government. And so in light of the situation that we had this financial year, we think that this increment is going to go a long way in improving the situation that we've had at hand. we believe it's a very big improvement and a very big milestone towards where we are heading as government. The other issue that has also impeded a lot of private sector competitiveness has been the infrastructure in our industrial parks. We've attracted a lot of FDI to establish in our parks. However, the infrastructure has really been a problem. And to that extent, government has allocated $308 billion to this issue and ensure that we manage the aspect of infrastructure in our industrial parks, and therefore make it easy for a lot of our businesses to move their goods from these parks to their respective destinations. Of course, I won't repeat the aspect of the access to markets with respect to the economic and commercial diplomacy strategy that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is coordinating with other ministries, departments, and agencies. You note that a lot of our products, a lot of our private sector actors could not access certain markets. But with this economic and commercial diplomacy strategy, we see that this is a game changer for us as a country. We continue to engage our neighbors around the non-tariff barriers that impede marketing of our private sector products to those different markets. And so we know that as we continue to implement this economic and commercial diplomacy strategy, we'll have a lot of wins. You may note that recently we sent our first consignment to Algeria, milk consignment, powdered milk, to Algeria, with the 3 private sector firms duly participating. And given the NTBs that we had with Kenya and our neighbors, we think that this is a very big milestone, and it's as a result of this economic and commercial diplomacy strategy. Mr. Moderator, I submit. Thank you.
All right. Remember, I'm hoping you're taking notes so that you'll be able to engage the panelists. But because for me, I have a microphone here, I can chip in a question or two if I forget. You said you're putting in $1 trillion in Uganda Development Bank. I wanted to know, perhaps even other people, that money, who can actually access this money, the $1 trillion? Does a farmer in Chawente or somewhere in Kaberamaido or a business person, can they get that money? And the agriculture credit financing, what is your assessment on whether it is helping or not?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. So the resources under the Uganda Development Bank, you will note that government has come up with a 10-fold growth strategy to basically grow the economy 10-fold by 2040. And the sectors that are being prioritized as government include the agro-industrialization, tourism, science, technology, and innovation, including ICT and the creatives industry. So a number of businesses that fall within this ambit that do add value will be able to access resources under the Uganda Development Bank. However, for the farmer that you have spoken to in Kaberamaido, depending on their size, there are also other interventions that government has come up with. You will note that we have the parish development model, depending on the size of this farmer. We have the PDM to cater for a number of our farmers at the bottom of the pyramid to ensure that they get into the money economy. We have other interventions, like again I mentioned the large-scale commercial farmers facility. So a number of these facilities depend on the size of the private sector player to be able to fit in. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And so, Mr. Alan Senyondwa, in 2025-26 budget signals for trade and investment opportunities, how prepared is the private sector? And I know you're from Uganda Manufacturers Association.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. Mr. Kamara, the private sector has been prepared for some time. The challenge has always been that as an economy, the private sector and government must speak the same language. When we do not speak the same language, then we misfire. And if you see carefully in this particular budget, we are beginning to align ourselves to the true north. Once you leave office at any government office or parliament, all of us know we quickly become private sector. So it is very encouraging that we all speak about what the real private sector is thinking. So how prepared are we? We are prepared to an extent. Because in order to trade, Mr. Moderator, in economics we say there are 4 fundamental truths that can lead a country to growth. Number 1, you must produce. Number 2, you must distribute what you produce. Number 3, you must market what you produce. To tie all these things up, you need finances. So countries fail to grow because of one of those 4 elements. In our country, we can see that the private sector is beginning to move. There is a lot of individual production taking place here and there. But the challenge you have in order for you to trade, especially outside of your own country, the dynamics change. If I am trading to Channamukaka, I can manage to take a few sacks of maize. But I am not going to take a few sacks of maize to the USA. I need a few 100,000 sacks. And that is per month. The dynamics change. Therefore, when you ask a question, is the private sector ready? At individual, maybe. But you will see us talking like as though we are a broken record, because now I'm going to quote what Honorable Katashuma said. We must learn that pure liberalism doesn't lead to growth. It is a debunked myth. Liberalism has to have ages, what we call ordo liberalism. Policy that supports liberalization and growth. Now, if we have to do real trade, we must aggregate at production level, and we must aggregate at marketing at market level. I'll give an example. And we spoke about this, I think I've spoken about it 3-4 times. We have been in the AGOA for some time until we had to leave for reasons best known to others. But by the time we left, Kenya, in the EAC, Kenya was responsible for 94% of the trade. And the whole of the rest of East Africa was responsible for 6%. The question is why? It's because of the models we have used. The Ugandan model is everyone get on a plane. After all, now we have Uganda Airlines. Everyone gets on a plane. We all go to trade. He who can, he who cannot, as long as you can, please get on a plane and go. Wrong. This is not Channamukaka. This is Europe. This is China. This is the US. The best model is get a few people who have the muscle, who know the marketing, who know everything, to do the marketing at that level, and the rest, you use an aggregation method and a sharing method, both to the front and to the back. And that's what the Kenyans did. We all cannot go to the United States of America. I'll just give an example so that we understand. Let me just mention a few supermarkets many of you may know. We have Walmart. Walmart has 14,000 supermarkets. And if you have to supply Walmart, you must be able to supply them so that each of their supermarkets gets something. So if there are 14,000, how many kilograms of avocado must you supply per week? Okay? If you have to supply Tesco as well, 13,000 supermarkets, how much maize must you supply? So the game changes completely. So the issue of aggregation we must deal with, both at production level and at marketing level. Otherwise, we will not be able. So at individual private sector level, we might be prepared. We need the aggregation tool to do that. I'll give another example. So that we move, we understand how ready we are. And the Honorable Kateshumbu has spoken about the negotiations in the in Arusha. Right now, the private sector attends each of them. Yours truly, I am there. The challenge is what he mentions, is that we back home are busy grappling about giving our ministries budgets to go for negotiations. The Kenyans and Tanzanians are way ahead of us. So, yes, Honorable Kateshumba, you were 4. Now I can say we are about 8. But the Kenyans are 25. The Tanzanians are 45. How do you negotiate 8? Okay, yes, you can have all the brains. But the numbers also matter. The expertise matters. So, if you don't negotiate very well and look at the nitty-gritty, you expect yourselves, even no matter how prepared you are in the private sector level, you will not do trade. I'll give this last example for EAC. We have just finished negotiations, and we really negotiated tough. But our colleagues and Madam Nanon has mentioned it, and we should take it seriously. The EAC is becoming a difficult place to trade. And we ourselves as Ugandans must push back a lot. We just got news the day before yesterday when they were reading the budget that now all imports to Tanzania of steel will be taxed. It's against the EAC protocol, but they have put it there. So how quick and good are we able to push back? So how prepared are we, Mr. Kamara? You can understand. Pushing back very quickly, being able to hint on some of these things is very critical. Allow me to go to say that when it comes to trade again, I'm focusing a lot at international level because it brings in a lot of FDI, and that FDI has a way of sinking back to the moon, to WA1C. Now, before I go to that, let me just give an example of what FDI, of what aggregation can do. There is a small country in Western Africa called Benin. Another one called Togo, another one, a bigger one called Mali. There are about 4 countries in West Africa who have surpassed all of us in the production of cotton. Our largest production of cotton happened in 1967. We have never produced so much cotton. Now, these countries specialized in production of cotton, and do you know what has happened? 8 of the best and largest clothing companies, American companies, have set up shop. Why? Because they have a very good aggregation system in that country, in those countries. What am I saying? In order for you to trade, you must show you have something. Volumes. We all in the private sector know that. It's a game of scale, especially if you're in manufacturing. If a manufacturer ever added so much on his product, you all know that it won't sell. So what game do they play as manufacturers? Scale. Produce as much as you can. We as Ugandans must get into the habit of really producing until the cows come home. I'll just also give another example. I want to be as practical as I can. Right now, a kilo of maize is 1,600. You can go, you can call your traders and everyone. Right? Next month, maize is going to be harvested. That price is going to go and drop to 800 or 600. Question at hand. What incentive is there for a farmer to plant maize the season after? So when we talk about aggregation, we just don't talk about these things for the sake of it. We say the farmers need to be supported. First of all, to get the best seed. I spoke about this yesterday and the other day. If we want to grow this economy really tenfold, the farmer must do what a farmer does. Farm. We cannot expect a farmer to go to Container Village and look for the best seeds. Expect that farmer, who is by the way P4 dropout, to estimate the best weather to plant. Go and look for the best acaricides and pesticides, please, again from Container Village. And when you harvest, please harvest at the best of knowledge. Do post-harvest handling. And after that, go and look for the market. It is a fallacy. What we need is really to go back and, as Honorable Katashumbu has said, put these people in groups, farmer groups, cooperatives, to be able to bargain and get the best of what they can. If we don't do that, all these agro-processing things we have put in place will not work. If you don't believe that, look at the coffee sector. We have begun producing a lot of coffee. And what is happening? Not everyone is running around marketing his coffee. No, there are systems in which are doing the coffee. And that's why the farmers are beginning to smell money in their pockets. So, how prepared are we? That is how prepared we are.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Alan. And like I said, I'll be chipping in a question or two, because the issue I can see here is market. But there is a very big elephant in the room called the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Have we taken advantage of that? What is this animal?
Thank you very much, Mr. Kamara. Now, I was privileged to be part of the negotiators of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. I think we spent about 20 weeks in Addis Ababa. The United Nations Development Report after the negotiation put Uganda at the top of the biggest beneficiaries within the EAC. Not even Kenya was going to benefit more than Uganda. Until, as Honorable Katashumba says, we began implementing. The Kenyans overtook us, the Rwandese overtook us. So, the issue is the implementation. It's not that we have some of the best brains on this continent. But we always fall short when it comes to implementation. Why were we put top? Unlike our colleagues in Kenya, we have a huge country on the western border called the DRC Congo. That borderline from the top to the bottom is estimated to be able to earn Uganda anywhere between $200 and $400 million per annum, if we manage to push product there. You have in the north, you have the South Sudan. That single country is able to push for us another $300 to $500 million if we can push product. Now, again, contrary to our colleagues in Kenya, not only do we have the DRC, but if you can push product into DRC, you are able to push product into Angola. If you can push product into South Sudan, you are able to push product into the Central African Republic. The challenge always is, you see, the Kenyans have this very good thing they do. The private sector is tied to the hip with the government. When we went and were marketing our products in Kinshasa, we found Kenyan companies there, but all backed up with a bank called the KCB, which is our sponsor. If we go to South Sudan, do we have any Ugandan bank there which is able to support our traders? No. Okay. So that is, we are supposed to be the biggest beneficiary of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area as the EAC.
Thank you very much. Reminds me of a gentleman I used to work with. Every time we were having a meeting and he's going to give a contribution, this is not about you, Mr. Salam. He would say, the challenge is, every time the challenge is, so now I think we actually named him Mr. Challenge. You know, I don't know, I think Mr. Julius Mukunda and fellow Ugandans, we need to maybe somebody do a serious research about this thing called lack of implementation. Almost in every forum and dialogue I've been in, is that we have the best intention, we have the best, programs, we have the best projects, but we do not implement. I mean, Makerere University, the academia, what is this thing called lack of implementation bag that has hit Uganda for more than 20 years, and we cannot even understand it? Okay, may I now invite Mr. Humphrey Asimwe. How supportive is the current fiscal regime in advancing local participation and value maximization in the minerals and petroleum industry?
Thank you very much, Mr. Kamara. I'll start by telling a story which I'm sure most of you will identify with. About 2 or 3 years ago, somebody somewhere sat and authored a report indicating that Uganda has so many metric tons of gold. Went ahead and pushed this report and this paper to a number of corridors of power in this country. When it got there, of course, it triggered excitement. When it triggered excitement, a couple of announcements were made in various fora. Please note that that estimation about the gold reserves of Uganda was not true. It was not based on the geology. It was not based on any exploration. It was somebody sitting and making his own calculations and projections with whatever wrong models he would come up with. Every so often, right now in this age of social media, this story gets recycled in all sorts of ways. And, you know, this time somebody does a video, the next time somebody puts up, you know, a whole conspiracy theory. Here is the point. Uganda continues to export a sizable amount of gold. As announced, $3.7 billion worth of, from gold, just from gold, which is a good thing because Uganda is a heavily mineralized country. We do have the minerals. In geology, we say that the geology does not respect boundaries. If your neighbors, Congo, are very rich in all kinds of mineral resources, South Sudan, Tanzania, do you think God was very mean to leave out Uganda? So it is very good news, Mr. Kamara, that the government, through NDP4, has chosen to prioritize mineral value addition as well as oil and gas. And the 850 or so billion shillings that has been earmarked for this sector, we know is going to capitalizing the Uganda National Mining Company, which is meant to be the vehicle through which government is involved and invests in the mineral sector in this country, is also going to the Kabalega Industrial Park to open it up to be able to make sure that as we journey towards first oil in July 2026, the attendant or the offshoot petrochemical industries that would most probably come out from the oil and gas are catered for, because that is also going to be a revenue stream. We all are looking forward to the day first oil starts flowing next year. And when that happens, we are hoping that as a country we can have anywhere from $1 billion to $2.5 billion coming to the coffers of this country, depending, of course, on the price of crude. I know right now Israel and Iran have gone at each other, and the effect of that is that the price on the barrel is going to go up. And as it goes up, of course, we are not yet producing, so you and I are going to feel it at the petrol station very soon. You don't need a prophet for that. So what is happening here is, with NDP4 focusing on mining and oil and gas, we are seeing that opportunities are beginning to avail themselves that Ugandan companies should be able to take advantage of. ECOP, for example, is at 58%, and those opportunities continue to be put out, tenders and things of that nature. We also are seeing the refinery that we are hoping to also start the designing and the construction of that, and that should also open up some opportunities for Ugandan companies. However, there remains a gap. If you want to deal with the kind of misinformation that we are having around, for example, regarding our oil, regarding our gold reserves, and if you want to be able to attract both local and foreign direct investment in the mining sector, you have got to do three things. Number one, you have got to explore. Exploration. Explore the country, know what is where, know how much of which mineral is where. The good news is, with the help of the Spanish government, we just completed the aerial geomagnetic surveying of the Karamoja region. And it has brought out what potential Karamoja has. But to be able to do that in the whole country and have a homogeneous map of Uganda that would tell you what minerals exist and what quantities is a very important undertaking that needs to be prioritized. So that is the mapping. And the third thing that needs to happen is we need to pick, as a country, key minerals that we want to be able to focus on. We should be able to take 4 or 5 minerals, not very many. Uganda is richly endowed with about 58 minerals on record. But 4 or 5 minerals that we can say, these minerals we have explored, we have packaged, we are able to go out and attract foreign direct investment in value addition for these minerals. That is the gap, and that is what needs to happen. We need to be able to focus. And I'm really glad about the presentation that was made earlier by the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The whole emphasis on commercial diplomacy. Because with that, what we are hoping to see is we can position Uganda, but as we position Uganda, you have got to position it with information, well-researched, well-documented, well-packaged data that comes from exploration and mapping. Very, very important. For the companies and the private sector that are in this room or that are listening in, with this current budget, it's important to understand that as we are looking to expand the energy sector, for example, to make sure that there is connectivity, increase the connectivity, there are opportunities for the local Ugandan to find out, what can I do? What can my company do? And all the panelists here have talked about what incentives are in place, what government is doing to make sure that they bring down the cost of money and things of that nature. There is also something else that I want to hasten to add, that Uganda basically does a lot of its mining through what is called artisanal and small-scale miners. That population alone is approximately 600,000 artisanal miners in Uganda that need to be formalized, that need to be banked. For the commercial banks in the room, there is an opportunity right there, because they have already proven that they are contributing to the 3.7 billion that is coming in from gold. They have proven that. So that is a demographic that needs to be looked into, and understand how do we strengthen our artisan and small-scale mining industry in this country by formalization, by banking, by technology, by providing finances for them so that they continue to mine and they continue to do value addition, and we can export and earn from our minerals in this country. Maybe the last thing I should point out, and it has been mentioned by the previous speakers, but I just want to add my voice to it, and it is the issue of sustainability. On sustainability, I'm talking about Ugandan companies getting contracts, getting deals, and they are very excited, jump into it, get their bankers to escort them, get everybody that they can, to get to be part and parcel of that whole ecosystem. And they start the work, but as time goes on, they cannot fulfill. We have seen that, unfortunately, in oil and gas, and it is worrying. And it is something that we are asking. Of course, there are many associations. As a chamber, we are doing what we can on that front. But we are also asking the civil society organizations here and government as well to be part of this. Why should a Ugandan, who everybody, all of us have fought hard to make sure that national content and local participation is emphasized. And in oil and gas, we have ensured that at least 13 sectors are ring-fenced for Ugandan companies. And we have ensured, and we are targeting that at least 40% of the $20 billion being invested in oil and gas goes to local companies, local content. And with that in place, Ugandans win these contracts. You win a contract to go and supply eggs, and you're required to produce, to bring to the site 5,000 trays of eggs every week for the next 3 years. Week 1, everything is fine. Week 2, we are okay. Week 6, we are good. Week 7, I have sent 4,000 trays. I am coming to explain. What are you coming to explain? They want eggs, not explanation. Nobody eats, explanation. And then at the end of it, these companies turn around and say to us who have been agitating for local content, your companies are not able to continue producing, are not able to continue. What is the challenge? Where is the challenge? How can we support our local companies to continue to service these contracts so that we do not lose out and we don't spoil the market for others? Thank you.
Thank you very much. A big round of applause to the panel. I must say kudos to CS Bag. You have assembled gentlemen and a lady who are phenomenal. Thank you so much. And in fact, I wanted to ask a question on the gold issue, but somehow you gave me the answer about how many people are involved. You talked of 600,000 artisan miners who are involved. I've always wanted to know. But for the $3.7 billion, that is the biggest, I think, foreign exchange earner for Uganda. I've always been wondering, I mean, who are actually benefiting, partaking on this biggest chunk of foreign exchange? How much of this gold is just re-export? Are we also not getting gold, like blood gold and blood diamond, from conflict areas? And how much are these artisan miners really partaking from the $3.7 billion?
So the truth of the matter is government has supported and put in place an environment that has made sure we have 10 refineries in country. 10 gold refineries in country registered and doing their work well okay. We have, and a lot of work is going into making sure that the artisanal miners, like I mentioned, are formalized, are using sustainable mining practices. They are not using mercury, and they are using better mining practices. And that is a lot of work in that. You know, it's not, we are not yet fully there. Mercury is still being used. But a lot of work is happening through civil society organizations, through organizations like the Chamber, in collaboration with development partners to reduce on those unsustainable mining practices and also increase on the traceability of our gold, so that the gold that is mined in Uganda is traceable all the way to the international market. Who is benefiting? Of course, government is benefiting because there is royalties and tax revenue on that. Of course, all the players in their entire gold supply chain, the refiners, the exporters, the miners, those that own the land, okay, those that own the exploration licenses, in addition to the artisanal miners, are all benefiting. There are small pieces along the way. And so I think it's important to note that it is an area that we are advocating for government to continue to look into, like they are saying in this budget, in the coming budget, and say, how do we formalize the artisanal miners? How do we make sure that our gold is traceable? How do we make sure that mineral markets are set in place? It's very exciting to note that the Bank of Uganda is also wanting to get involved in the gold trade, because world over, after the Russia invasion of Ukraine, there was a global push to make sure that every country, as much as possible, backs up its currency with its own gold reserves in country. And the Bank of Uganda is not seated. They are doing some work to make sure that they are involved in this, and that is also profiling the gold sector, profiling this value chain, because it's very important that that gold is traceable, that gold earns what it needs to earn, and the Bank of Uganda can buy the portion that they want to buy from the artisanals.
All right, thank you, Humphrey. Thank you to the panel. A round of applause to them. I think they have been very good. They are very articulate. They know their subject like the back of their hands. They've been able to explain some of these things. In my view, they've done so well. And so it is the time for you also to have your say. You're going to put up your hand. You tell us where you're from, and keep it very short. If you have a question and you know it is directed to a particular person here, please make it known and make it very precise and concise. And so we have about 30 minutes or less than that for us to have this plenary. Who is going first? There's going to be a microphone that somebody will hold and bring to you. There's a gentleman at the other side. I can see the hands already up. So please, the person with the microphone, can you come in front, in here in the middle? The gentleman with the microphone, please come this side. I can see hands this side. Oh, there is one here. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Anani Clayton. I work with Agritera as a policy advocacy, but also the director of African Trade Center, ACTADE. I have two questions or three. One, I want to talk about exports, and I'm concerned about the export services. We talk much about merchandise exports, but sometimes we forget about export services. And this goes back to my colleague Julius, that as CSOs, we need to really advocate for export services because they contribute around 2% to the GDP. But when it comes to service exports, it's only 1.8 around there in terms of exports. So another thing is on issue of African trade, continental free trade area. I think one of the presenters have commented about it. There was supposed to be what we call a national trading company, and that was a recommendation by the heads of state in 2022. I don't know what happened to Uganda. I don't know who is responsible. Is it Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister of Trade and Industry, or Minister of Finance to establish that national trading company, because it was supposed to facilitate and help our exporters or companies to access the African market. Because this is one way of diversification, because our African markets are less intense. There are no much restrictions. We need to really to access it. Then lastly, I want to talk about the ACF. I'm happy that the government has put 50 billion in that fund, but allocating those funds is one way, but also accessing it is another thing. I'm happy my MP Kateshumba has mentioned about it. If you go to some of our farmers, including myself, accessing that money has been a problem. And we have been advocating that this money can also go to SACCOs, to Tier 4 microfinance, when it becomes easier for these farmers to access that money. Bank of Uganda says that as long as the SACCOs can be regulated by Bank of Uganda, they can access it. But no, okay. I think something must go beyond that and help these farmers access that money at the level. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. You have helped me to gauge how I'm going to drive this. I'm not going to be as generous as I have been, but I let you go so that you can be the litmus test for me to know. So the next is strictly one question. If you have three, choose one that you think is good enough. And also, if you want a particular panelist to answer, please be specific.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. I'm Dr. Jacob Tim from Chamberlain University. My major concern is going to go to the Honorable Dickson Ketusumba on the issue of fiscal discipline. We have a report from the Auditor General that indicated that in the last 6 financial years, 17.3 trillion Uganda shilling have not been spent, and 32 trillion Uganda shilling has been spent on supplementary budget. What is the role of Parliament? Why do we have fiscal indiscipline? Because it's one of the key challenges that affects the operations of a budget like this.
Thank you,
and,
Dr. Tim.
And lastly, on the issue which you asked, implementation. The reason why we are having implementation challenges, because we lack systems that operate. So I would advise recommend what the gentleman there, I think is Hallam, is it Hallam? Alfred. On the issue of cooperative model, it has been a method that has worked over years. But because we have abandoned the cooperative model, our farmers are at disarray. They don't know what to be done. Each farmer is doing his own things. As he has made mention, when it comes to seed, when it comes to all these kind of arrangements, they are doing this thing on their own. So I would really recommend that government needs to create a system that we used to have to ensure that our farmers are organized. By organizing the farmers, I do believe we will be going a long way. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tim. In the academia, you can look into that issue of implementation. Why are we like this? Okay. Where are the hands? It's still time. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. My name is Omtams Wycliffe from Kanungu. I work with Kakwet and I partner with CSBAG. My question is on tourism. We have within the Impenetrable National Park as one of the strategies on tourism development to attain 10-fold growth strategy by this budget. Burundi contributes 2.5% to GDP of Uganda, amounting to 60% of total tourism revenues. But it takes you more than 3 hours to connect from one sub-county, from the tarmac to Gindi. The road is impassable. So shall this strategy take us through to attain such? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do you want to give the tourists some experience of the bad road as well? Is it part of the package? Okay. And I know Honorable Kateshumba is in the tourism sector as well. I've also seen my friend here, MD of Jed Hotel, Mr. Mokasa from Fort Portal. I see a lot of tour operators here. Okay. Ma'am, you had your hand. Yes.
Yes. Thank you, moderator. My name is Gilbert Mojong from Uganda Insurance Association. Madam Nanono talked about the 1 trillion and then that has been put to UDP. But I want to remind her of the COVID recovery fund that was given in the prior financial year. But up to now, if you ask specific, maybe Uganda Manufacturers Association or CASITA, of how many members of theirs who have benefited from those funds, they will hardly give you any. So my question therefore is, what strategies have you put in place to ensure that a person who is in Rukunjiri or in Amdat can also be able easily access those funds so that they can easily step up in business? Thank you.
Whom do you want to answer that question?
Madam Nanono.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to take maybe 2 more or 3, then the panel will respond. Probably, I can see now the hands at the beginning were very many, which means these people have been very thorough, you understand? Or probably they have been so complicated and you are lost. But I think the former is the part.
Should I?
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. William Namutale, the Uganda Clearing Industry and Forwarding Association. My question is on Mr. Senyondwa there talked about preparedness. What has been or should be the solution to this preparedness by the private sector? Why should we have, and it has been recurring, why should we have 8 when others are having 40? Why should we, even there are some other related issues, why should we have our milk being barred from crossing the border yet?
You're talking about when through negotiation you have a delegation of 8?
No, he mentioned about, Mr. Senyoda specifically mentioned about the preparedness, that usually we, as Ugandans, we are at a lower end. That, and actually it's true. When they are supposed to be like 40, we are 8. What has been done? What is the solution to that? Because it is recurring, and it's recurring even in the other sectors that usually lag behind.
So to be very clear, when you talked about 40 and 8, 40 and 8 what?
members on those panels, on those representations in those when we have regional meetings and whatever.
And perhaps maybe the 6 have gone to shop in Nairobi.
Exactly. And maybe the other question
Others
is...
in downtown Nairobi trying to shop.
The other question is on the African Continental Free Trade Area. You've told us you've been there for about 20 weeks. But you know, this issue has remained a mystery. There is a gap. I know you are manufacturers and they are traders. I represent the private sector in other ways. But there is a gap between the traders who actually sell these goods and the manufacturers. You're finding at least, you have some information about the free trade area. I mean the African Continental Free Trade Area. But the traders out there don't. And this also goes to the ministry involved. There is still lack of sensitization about the African Continental Free Trade Areas. My boss and colleague there, Mr. Kate Shumbwa, what would be the solution to man eat man? I remember you put us under, we had that same problem at one time. But what would be the solution? Because it is also recurring and it's usually bags us down. You know how individual groups or associations usually want to advocate for themselves, and yet we need to look at ourselves as
Thank you very much,
sir.
You made your point, and your point is taken. I have a hand at the back there, and then and right here. So let's begin, and then we shall conclude from here.
Thank you, moderator, and our panelists, and the previous speakers. My name is Kakuru Abraham, and I work with the Ministry of Tourism. And my issue that I want to address myself to is the issue of access to finance. I think it's high time for government to revise the financing model. The idea of putting money in UDB, I think on a large scale, this money is not reaching the wananchi that we have in our villages. Because if you look at the wananchi, who do they deal with when it comes to accessing finance? One, it is these groups that they mobilize among themselves, the circles, and who do these circles deal with? They work with the microfinance support center on a large scale. So if we continuously put a lot of money in UDB, which UDB is accessed by the commercial farmers alone, I think we are doing a disservice to these people on the grassroots. It's high time that we revise that approach. Perhaps we work so closely with circles and ensure that this money can easily access the local person. Of course, I know there are commercial banks that provide funding, for example, Post Bank and others, Centenary Bank, but this money, sometimes the process themselves to access it is too long, and people want money. So I think we need to look into that issue and make sure that these finances can get easily accessed by the local person.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let me bring the microphone. I've seen the hand of Honorable Geoffrey Kanya. Oh, there's also another person. After that, ma'am, okay.
Thank you very much. I want to thank the panel, and I want to comment regarding the issue of minerals and mining. By the way, the wealth in the mineral sector is greater than what we are looking at in the oil. We need to make the reform that is needed in the mineral sector a project in order to achieve serious budget allocation 2026-2027. Currently, what's very urgent, and I want to request Chamber of Mines, that we need to amend the Mineral and Mining Act as a matter of urgency, because there is, in the mining industry, there's what they call waste. In the Western world, where mining has been grown over time, even South Africa, it is mandatory for anybody engaging in extraction to store the waste. Even those in the manufacturing to store the waste. These waste have different usage, which when quantified, for example, in the construction industry, can bring down the cost of building material to about by 40%, all these blocks you see and so forth. So the reform that we need. Number two, we need to create standardization. Most of the byproducts that are processed from our mineral are not standardized. So I really want to request you, and the people, the artisans you have talked about, require the necessary infrastructure. Honorable Katesh, you come from that part of the world, and Karamoja. These artisans need water, need good roads, need hospitals, need schools, and they need to be supported. What we provided for in the budget is just a drop in the sea. So 2026, 2027, we need to have about 1 trillion to support artisan industry. And then we'll have tenfold growth just in that sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And there was somebody, okay, and that's going to be the last contribution. I come back to the panelists.
Thank you very much. Sophie Nampew is my name, from Oxfam in Uganda. It's unfortunate the ambassador left, but he talked about trading within the region, and it's also been mentioned by the gentleman from UMA. As how can we take advantage with the African Continental Free Trade Area, and how can we take advantage of market within the regions? ECOWAS, SADC, and you had talked about DRC. There is a lot of potential within Africa, but there is also difficulty trading within Africa. How can this be improved with the increasing non-tariff barriers that we see, not just within EAC, but even in other countries surrounding us? Then Honorable Kateshumba talked about strengthening consumer protection. How can this be done? We have our own traders within Uganda complaining about goods coming in from China. You enter a supermarket and it's full of Chinese goods, even those that we produce here within Uganda. How can we manage this? And then also, sorry, I also forgot something in line with the trade. We know, sorry, I forget the name, the gentleman from UMA. I know Alan, I didn't want to say Alan because it seems so casual, but it's okay. Alan talked about individuals going to negotiate for market. This we have talked about over and over within different countries. How best can we put these, if it's private sector together, if you're producing, let me say the agricultural produce that you're taking out, to have one voice, to have more produce put together. We've seen farmers bring coffee, 2 sacks, 5 sacks, 10 sacks, and all together they sell 100 bags together in a region. We've practiced that in West Nile, and we see it working. You end up getting the 100 bags and sell them. They have better negotiating power because they are big masses, which are different from 1 or 2 bags being sold. Why isn't this being done as a country? Where is government failing in this, and what can be done? Then one last element to Mr. Simwe about the minerals. We are mineral rich, yes, and we are thankful for that, but the transparency is killing us. How much do we have? How much are we exporting? How much are we getting from this? Even Bank of Uganda will tell you we are exporting more than we are bringing in. Illicit financial flows are killing us. How can we strengthen this within the sector in terms of the minerals, what we are exploring, and what we are gaining out of this to get our potential?
Thank you. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. So now the panelists are going to respond, but I realize, Honorable Kateshumba, you had so many questions coming to you. How about if you go first, and then the other colleagues will come?
Yeah, thank you very much. I'll start with the issue of access to funding. And you have talked about the agricultural credit facility in BOU. And even in UDB and others. I think as Parliament, we have been asking ourselves, I think there's a time we asked for a report about the beneficiaries. I think government needs to come clear about the process of accessing these funds. Because even if you did a survey among the legislators who passed this budget, perhaps a few will tell you, how do you go to access this money in BOU? There is a need for more transparency in terms of, like PDM. PDM, we know it goes every parish, there is this money. and it concerns all the wealth funds. So I think the ministry can publish and give out information, but also we need to have some kind of annual report. I have been challenging the ministry. When I see a development bank declaring profits, I don't think that should be a major KPI for us to celebrate. We should be talking about the projects that we have successfully financed, the jobs that have been created through this, even if there is a loss. But if we have created jobs and we have done a lot of projects, it's better for me. Fiscal discipline, that's a very big problem. When we came to Parliament, we were told in the first meeting with finance that the era of supplementary is going to be over. My colleague Ekanya, we sit together on finance committee. The supplementary budgeting is going to be here as long as we continue the way we are planning and budgeting. First of all, the problem is we have a small budget. And if you look at the structure of our budget, the percent that goes to handle recurrent, the first call on the budget, what is left is little vis-a-vis the so many demands and unfunded priorities. So what happens is that sometimes we leave out, the planning leaves out some of the critical essential. And then midway, if you have wages and salaries as unfunded, definitely supplementary will come. Supplementary would have happened if they are unforeseen what the other time, unforeseen and what you cannot leave. But what we see year in, year out is that some of the things are avoidable, could have done better. So it calls upon accounting officers, let's not make commitments when we are not ready. The example I have always given, and I talked about it recently, is every ministry almost, everywhere, everybody is building, putting up a headquarter. How does it start? You have an estimate of 80 billion, and then you get a commitment of 10, then you start. So at the end of the day, you are all stuck somewhere, getting very little money, but the contractors have certificates. So at some point, the Minister of Finance, you must be very tough and say, don't commit government. Because when you put money in brick and mortar and it is stuck there for years, there is no return on investment. So let us try to be very, very strict on accounting officers, on committing government, and yet there is no guarantee that they will be funding ahead. Issue of consumer protection, Madam Sophie, I think it goes back to the standards. We have tried this year to support Uganda Bureau of Standards to recruit, to do more testing, because also there is a report which showed that 60% of the substandard products are actually manufactured locally. So it's not necessarily the imports alone. There is need for more certification and inspection. So we need to see more inspectors. By the time you are manufacturing, you should have a Q mark. But the process needs to be fast-tracked. And some of us who are thinking that we should decentralize the way you may want to go and have tests in different labs, then you take to the doctor in one place. So we think that also the law needs to be opened up so that the private sector can set up labs, certification labs, to supplement what the UNBS is doing. That way it will quicken the process. And then more consumer alertness. You know, when I go with my daughters to the supermarket, when they pick that Ribena, they check the expiry date. If it is very close, they tell me, no, this is not safe. So consumers, the public must be very, very alert. The way you rose up against the EPS, it was just ridiculous. But the public was alert, and the government had to respond. The NRM government listened. So they will listen to you and act. I think.
Are you sure it was not hitting NRM itself?
Finally.
It looks like they were part of the people protesting.
Yeah, of course. Does not mean that we are part of the public. On tourism development, the gentleman from Bwin, I agree with him. tourism, they are very key enablers that support tourism sector. Before you start marketing, the other day I was on a panelist with Julius, and I said, no matter how Somalia may put money in marketing, it is difficult for me to go to Somalia. Why? The key enabler there threatens me. So security, infrastructure, and when you go to infrastructure, you must look at the roads, internet connectivity, telecom, all these are very key. The good news is that there is a commitment to do the tourism roads in the wind area. The wind is it's the Rolls Royce of tourism in the whole world. Over 50% of the gorillas. So I think the government needs to the way we have prioritized oil roads, we need to do the infrastructure. And then as government, this business of siloism, to put a mast in the national park, you must pay rent to Wildlife Authority. Yet Wildlife Authority knows if there is no internet, it affects the numbers directly. In the era of communication, people want to do live broadcast, TikTok, while they are seeing animals. So what is the opportunity for Agoni? Why don't you make it easy for the telecom to be established so that the numbers increase? Then you have more gate corrections. So we need government to speak as a team. Finally, the gap between traders and manufacturers, private sector preparedness, there's a lot of work to do. Private sector needs to handhold private sector. The big must handhold the small. I used to make this point that it is a progression. You start as a small individual, you become a proprietor, you become a small-scale trader, you become a retailer, wholesaler, small-scale manufacturer, big manufacturer, regional, multinational. If you are a big producer of steel, your first assured market is the internal market. The internal market can only grow if people have got surplus income to spend. So, if you are able to support someone who is processing honey somewhere in Kanyandahi or where in the village, and he grows and employs more people, those people will buy your steel. So, don't be big and forget about the small or try to bring them down. So this problem of man eat man needs you to sit as a private sector and know that your first market is the local market. How does the local market expand if there is growth across, including the small ones? For you, as you think about going to Central African Republic, don't fight because the biggest problem is competition. You are competing for small markets here. Look big while the small ones also come up. That will help in dealing with this problem. I think that's
Thank you
what
very
I can
much.
say, and
a round of applause for Katesh. Thank you so much. Thank you. May I suggest that Alan, you go next, and then Dan, and after that we shall go gold.
Wow. So let's also first go back to the issue of the gap between manufacturers and traders. Allow me again to put on my academic hat, then so that I can answer properly. The challenge sometimes we have in our country is we are like a father who literally forces his kids through school, through business school. Then the young person comes home with a very nice degree from Harvard. Sorry about Harvard and its issues. Comes home with a top-notch degree, and then you tell him, boss, no, what you're saying doesn't work. This is a huge challenge in our country. We always have that term in Uganda. And what happens is we always throw out logic in whatever we do. Now, what is trade? Trade is the exchange of goods and services. Exchange. In other words, you give and receive. The challenge that we have had over a long period of time is the trade in our country has been meant to mean importation. So we haven't helped our traders to say, go to China with the coffee and come back with the product. So our trade has really been a one-way trade, but it's because of our history. You can't blame a lot of the people. It's just the history has not helped us do that. So as we go forward, our job therefore is to sensitize the traders that actually trade is supposed to be two-way. We are seeing it already, and Honorable Katesh, even before you left customs, you used to see it. The containers come fully loaded and go away empty. And therefore, we always keep on forgetting the original law, which says...
Actually, even Kampala Ginger Road can show you.
One
side of the road is that comes heavy, sometimes sinks in, and the other side that goes with dead weight.
Actually, we went and took photos of that so that we can make a point. We had to take a photo of Bweyogerere before it was well done, to show that the road coming from Malaba is already despoiled and the road going to Malaba is still okay. So we used to do that, but that showed that we were importing much, much more than we were exporting. Now, coming back to the issue. So we must first and foremost learn to produce things. I have my colleague here from the Uganda Small Scale Industries Association. And Honorable Katesha has spoken a lot about hand-holding and supporting each other. We are in a country where you can have 1 million honey producers. And all of us are again running to who? To UNBS. To do what? Certify our honey. How many tins of honey are you producing? 5, 50, 100 per month. The certificate is how much? 2 million shillings. So many a times our challenge is and out of how we have been. Ugandans have never been known for marketing. Why? Because of the culture. Our cultures have not told us to market ourselves. It is only when we really go to school that we learn to market ourselves. So one of the things that we must do and do properly is the art of negotiation and the art of marketing. That is why our counterparts in Kenya beat us at it. The counterparts in Tanzania beat us at it. We can see, I'll end with this, moderator, so that we understand. We have, Honorable Katecha has spoken about that, the best tourism sites in EAC. But someone will rather fly, visit the Masai Mara, and a little bit of what Nairobi is, go and hang on the beaches in Mombasa and go back to Europe. The Rwandese, who have just 10% of the gorillas, have done a better marketing about the... You can think actually that the gorillas in Rwanda sleep in Rwanda, wake up in the morning, come to Uganda, and tomorrow when the tourists are needed, they somehow cross back to Rwanda. What am I trying to say? The Germans have a saying, wer nicht werbt, stirbt. In English, if you don't woo, you die. What does it mean in local terms? You must go and woo your wife in order for you to have kids. Not so. If you can't woo a wife, you can't have kids, so you die. Not so. One of the biggest things we must learn to do in our country is talk good about ourselves. I'll end by that.
We need to tell our stories. And there are very many. So Diana, we're running out of time, so I hope you can navigate that with time in your mind.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Moderator. I think I basically had 2 questions from my colleague in service from the Ministry of Tourism, who basically was inquiring about how circles in different sub-regions of the country are able to receive funding. And to this extent, the Microfinance Support Center is the vehicle or institution through which government provides resources to circles whenever the private sector they're willing to receive resources for purposes of competitiveness of their business. So I would urge you to reach out to the Microfinance Support Center. Resources have been duly allocated there for purposes of ensuring that SACCOs access money. And the very last question that I was the strategies to ensure easy access to resources under the Uganda Development Bank. The UDB engages the private sector from different sub-regions and creates a lot of awareness about their products. I think that there is more awareness and continuous sensitization that is required, but I believe that that is one of the areas, the strategies that they ensure that there is very easy access to their resources. They also have a business development services program where they prepare different businesses to access that makes it easy further for businesses to access resources. We take note of the challenge that has been raised in this meeting around access and we'll engage further. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Humphrey, let's go for gold.
Okay, so I want to thank Honorable Ekanya for his contribution. Yes, we need to look at the laws, but then we also need to, the legal framework as it stands has some very good things. If we have the investment that is happening in UNBS on standardization, it will be able to help in the mining sector as well. On the issue of waste, that is true. There needs to be better collaboration. Waste in the mining sector can be a bit of a challenge, but can be an opportunity. So I'll just give a very short illustration. One of our members who's been involved in subsurface mining and, getting rock from as far as 2 kilometers, 3 kilometers, going to 10 kilometers underground. When he gets the rock out and he takes out the mineral that he wants, he has all this waste left aside, and it was piling up. But at some point, decided to sell this rock to the community for road construction and things of that nature. Immediately he did that, URA pounced and said, no, you have a mining license. You don't have a quarrying license. Now that is what we call tunnel thinking. You're thinking just in one plane. Because if I'm going to mine, if I'm going 10 kilometers underground and I'm going to get all this rock out of there, of course I am quarrying. You want me to do what with it? So he ended up saying, okay, fine, I will donate it to the community to construct roads and the rest. And they said, no, you need to account for each and every one of the tons that you got from under there. It's still an ongoing process. So I agree with what Honorable Kateshumba said. There needs to be better collaboration, better coordination of government agencies in some of these aspects. But yes, waste is an issue that we are very aware of. On the transparency issue, especially in gold, I want to, first of all, agree with what Mr. Allen mentioned, that we need to be very careful how we speak about our country. The things, the statements we make, because some people have made statements that are unfounded and have landed us in some lists we don't want to be in, when they are not true. So if you're not clear about the information do the research, and let that be clear. Because Uganda is a signatory to the International Extractives Industry Transparency Initiative. CSBAG is on that platform. Most of the CSOs here are on there. The mining companies are on there. We are there as the chamber and also representing the mining companies. And we are always, every year, providing information to the Extractives Industry Transparency Initiative about what is happening in the sector. But we have also gone a step further to say that from the private sector, we want to be able to make, and forgive my French, we want to make transparency and compliance sexy. When Honorable Kateshumba was in URA, there was the authorized economic operator system where traders willingly came out and were compliant so that they are able to be put on this, fast track line. We are saying that even in the mining sector, we need the very same thing. What incentives do I have to be completely transparent so that EITI can leverage the benefits? Thank you.
Thank you very much. The panel discussion and the plenary ends there. But there's one question that I think I can put to the, yes, I wanted actually to read the question and maybe make some clarification as you come. At the end of several financial years, there's always unspent money unabsorbed by entities or programs. This money goes back to the consolidated fund. Where is it not always reflected in the following budgeting cycle as balance brought forward? And so, Acting Commissioner, if you have more to clarify, please. The microphone is right there.
Thank you, moderator. Let me start with that one.
I beg your pardon, sir. Probably the panelists you could leave at thank you.
Yeah.
But there's going to be a photo moment for the four of you. So I'm sorry to interrupt you, sir. Probably not now. Okay, because some of them are leaving.
You need me there. You need me there.
Yes. Okay, the following people maybe can also join. I need somebody from Oxfam to join the group photo. I have all the panelists are here. All those who were the speakers earlier. Could you, representative of the governor, of the deputy governor, please also join. KCB.
Thank you, moderator. Unspent balances, which cannot be availed for spending. First of all, we all know that appropriation expires. The budget that Parliament approves is to run up to end June. Once the financial year ends, it expires, that appropriation expires, and you cannot, no vote will claim that it has the money that has remained. More to that, when we implemented the treasury single account, this money is not available on any account of any institution. They only have like expenditure limits. This is the money available for you. If you don't spend it, it goes back. The accountant general keeps sweeping it back. So at that time of the financial year is ending, there is no intent of having this money. They only had some projections, some what we call the limits. You would have spent up to this, but since you have failed to reach there, the money remains in the consolidated fund. So it's not available for any vote. Treasury single account. Then the other clarification I wanted to make is to do with the stock of areas, where the colleagues were talking of 13 trillion. What members should know is that the verified stock of areas by internal auditor general, which informed the allocation of the 1.4 trillion for this financial year, was at by the time of the approval of the budget, it stood at 5.9 trillion. 5.9 trillion, and that exercise is still going on, the verification exercise. The figure might maybe go up slightly or even lower, because some of these claim to be areas are not genuine. So what exaggerates it to 13 is the advances that the government was getting from Bank of Uganda areas. But the government now did its position good through securities that has been sorted using securities. So Bank of Uganda is not owed those areas now. It was, the arrangement was reached through securities, and that's not part of the areas now. So what we know is 5.9, which might go, which might increase slightly or low, and the government has made a commitment that whatever is verified and is genuine will be cleared within 3 years, starting with 1.4 provided in financial year 25-26. I thank you.
Thank you very much for that clarification. Let me also mention some of the colleagues who have joined us who have been with us. We have Mr. Deus Muvangizi from UNBS. We thank you for being here. We have Dennis Dokoria from Uganda Development Corporation, Ronald Chagulanyi from PSFU. We thank you, Honorable Ekanya. You've been with us. We have the EU Economic Advisor, Mr. Talent Mwesiga here. We have the Minister of Trade and Industry represented by Mr. Twine Abel. We have the Uganda Free Zones and Export Promotion Authority, Daniel Musinguzi, with us. We have Mr. Tusime Edison from NEMA. We have the EPRC team. We have the Ministry of Transport and Communication. Ms. Elizabeth Tukwasikanya is here. We have the Kasita CEO, Abel Mwesje. We have the team from URA. We have the team from Uganda National Chamber of Commerce. We have a team from the Ministry of ICT, Equal Opportunities Commission, UBOS, and Uganda Investment Authority. And we have all of you. Thank you so much. May I invite Mr. Julius Mukunda to call the guest of honor who will be closing this official and maybe make some other announcements that are necessary. Thank you very much.
Yes, I think let's give a clap to Patrick for thank you so much for coming. Especially those from the MDAs for having started with us, our colleagues from civil society, but also the private sector. This is the journey at Fiesburg we are starting, and we hope that we can be able to be a voice for our business community in this country. And I remember what the PCS said, whether you are small or big, you will be taken care of. I think 5 things. One is we need to deal with the issue of capital, affordable capital is important. I think that is very clear. So it's something that we will be able pushing for. The second one, which I'm looking at, is the issue of markets. And I think the PSST Ministry of Foreign Affairs was very clear about that, to ensure that at least the issue of economic diplomacy, we should give it a very serious priority. I think the mines, the artisanal mines, I think I would look at it in terms of how can we formalize our economy. I think the artisan issue came out very clearly. And lastly, I think the issue ensure that we implement our work on time, but also on budget has come out very clearly, because even if it's about paying our domestic areas, if it's about having projects to finish them on time, also came out very clear. And so many other issues that came out, which I will not be able to do, but we will be able to have a highlight, share with all of you, have shared with your contacts, so that we can be able to see how really we can make our business community thrive, but also benefit from the 10-fold growth strategy. May I, at this juncture, invite the representative of the Deputy Governor to come and officially close our high-level breakfast, high-level budget dialogue. Thank you so much, colleagues. As he comes, please join me to thank KCB and also Oxfam for graciously donating have this workshop take place. Thank you so much, KCB. Thank you so much, Oxfam, for coming in handy to support us in this endeavor. You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Makunda. Ladies and gentlemen, I think this has been a very interactive dialogue, and a number of pertinent things actually came up, and I thought in this summary I can provide some insights. I'm very happy to see that everyone was talking about markets, talking about trade, and since Bank of Uganda is in the middle of this, I don't know how you're going to trade without money. And I don't know how you're going to make payments without an efficient system. And it's very interesting, and I'm very honored to be able to close. But I'll end with 3 main points. What does Bank of Uganda do to help in this discussion? The bank conducted 6 town halls across the country. We went to Karamoja, we went to Fort Portal, we have been to Mbarara, we've been to Gulu. And what we have been saying consistently is there is need for financial literacy. When I heard members asking about the agriculture credit facility, if you just Google agriculture credit facility and you click on the first presentation that is there, it talks about how you can access it. It talks about why it's there. But I think what we need to do is to continue asking us as Ugandans to keep reading. It seems we would listen more than read. It is there. There is a full presentation by Bank of Uganda. For example, one of the presentations was for 2016. And it shows that we had 436 beneficiaries. And we had given out, together with the commercial banks, 336 billion. But I can tell you we are how many years later? 9 years. I can bet if I ask someone in this room to tell me how much we had used, you wouldn't. The Small Business Recovery Fund. All this goes back to the points the team has raised. Markets. People struggled, the government provided money, no one asked. Why? They are not, Ugandans, we don't have a culture of questioning, you know. It looks like you're so bad-mannered if you ask, you know, can you tell me about this? No. Bank of Uganda is committed to continue showing the public that we're out here to give you the financial literacy. Lastly, as we end today, let's ask ourselves, rather than ask your neighbor, what can we do as Ugandans? Ask yourself, what can you do as you? Mr. Julius and the team organized this. Will this discussion stop here? I would appeal to you, go back to your offices, go back to your homes, and say, let me do my part. Let me start this discussion. If it is to ask government, you have representatives. Let's ask them. And my colleagues from Ministry of Finance, we continue ensuring that we handle the concerns. And like my colleague has said, this issue of arrears, I think, is being taken seriously, and I cannot add on more to what my colleague have said. Now, my friend in minerals, I've been there, I've seen. I encourage each of you to take a trip to Kasanda, and then you would actually appreciate what they are talking about. So, on behalf of the team that organized this one, and on behalf of my Deputy Governor, Professor, I would like to declare this dialogue closed. Thank you very much.